We dive deep into real-life crime stories, peeling back the layers of mysteries that have haunted the world for years. From chilling unsolved cases to shocking investigations, we leave no stone unturned. With every video, we bring you the raw truth. No shortcuts, no fluff, just the facts you need to understand what really happened. If you're ready to uncover the dark, untold truths and explore the cases that remain unchanged, hit that subscribe button. My name is Greg, and welcome to Unchanged.
Imagine for a moment the quiet streets of Ontario, Canada, in the early 1990s, a time when the world seemed to be unfolding with the normal rhythms of everyday life. And yet, lurking beneath that calm exterior, something far more chilling was about to unfold. Paul Bernardo, a man many knew as charming, outgoing, and well-adjusted, lived among them. He had a seemingly perfect life with his fiancée, Karla Homolka. Together, they appeared to be the embodiment of young love, sharing their lives, their hopes, their dreams. What could be more normal than that? But what if I told you that the couple's love story was nothing more than an illusion? What if I told you that the twisted truth of their relationship would unravel something unimaginable? Two young women, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French, would become the center of an unspeakable nightmare. In the midst of their ordinary lives, they were taken, their futures stolen, and their bodies discarded. But the horror didn't stop there. There were witnesses, there were pieces of evidence, and there were moments of hesitation that were ignored. And through it all, one question remains. How much did Karla Homolka truly know? What role did she play in all of this? You're about to hear the details, the secrets, and the revelations that would forever change the way we look at the very nature of evil and the capacity for deception. Stay with me, because this story is not over yet. Leslie Mahaffey was just 14 years old when she was abducted from the streets of Burlington, Ontario, in June of 1991. A bright, beautiful teenager with her whole life ahead of her. She went for a walk, but she never made it back. Her family, frantic and fearful, had no idea what horrors their daughter was about to face. Days turned into weeks, but Leslie's fate would remain a chilling mystery. 2 years later, Kristen French, only 15 years old, would disappear in a similar fashion, taken from a suburban street in St. Catharines. The two girls, both from the same province, both living normal lives, so why had they been chosen? The answer, as it would soon come to light, would send shockwaves through the country. At first, police had no clear suspects, but over time a pattern began to emerge. A pattern that pointed directly at the home of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. And what seemed like a tragic coincidence soon turned into a nightmare beyond belief. Both Leslie and Kristen's abductions had disturbing similarities, and investigators would slowly begin to piece together a terrifying picture of what had really happened. As the investigation took hold, the couple at the center of this terror, Paul and Karla, were not strangers to law enforcement. Paul, a man with a history of violent behavior, was already under suspicion for several unsolved assaults. Yet, as the case unfolded, the connection between the victims and this seemingly normal couple would shock the world. But what Karla would eventually reveal about her role in the crimes, was it the truth? Or was it just another part of the carefully crafted lie she had been telling the world? As the investigation into the disappearances of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French intensified, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, slowly but with growing certainty. Paul Bernardo, known in his community as an upstanding man, someone you might invite into your home, was not only a suspect in these disappearances, but the violent acts that surrounded them began to mirror a pattern of assaults he had committed over the years. It was at this point that investigators realized the key to cracking the case lay not just in the twisted actions of Paul, but in understanding the dynamics of his relationship with Karla Homolka. Witness accounts began to reveal that while Paul's violent tendencies were no secret to those close to him, Karla's role had always been a mystery. Could she have been a victim of Paul's manipulation? Or was she an active accomplice, pretending to be the dutiful girlfriend while secretly enabling his every move? It wasn't long before police began to notice a chilling detail: Karla's presence during Paul's assaults. Surveillance footage confirmed that Karla had been there, by Paul's side, in the moments leading up to the abductions. And there, caught in the grainy footage, was Karla, not screaming, not trying to escape, but complicit in the crimes unfolding before her. As the investigation dragged on, authorities became more convinced. The tapes existed, and they held the key to understanding the true nature of Paul and Karla's relationship. But what they didn't know was just how deeply these recordings would shake the case. The reality was more disturbing than anything they could have imagined. Every day brought new evidence, new revelations. Yet, Karla maintained her innocence. She presented herself as a victim, as someone coerced by Paul into acts she now claimed to regret. The police were not yet convinced. But the question was beginning to shift. Was Karla the victim, or had she been a master of deception from the very start? Then came the tapes, the chilling, undeniable proof of their horrific crimes. Paul Bernardo, in his disturbing obsession with control and manipulation, had videotaped every brutal detail: the abduction, the captivity, the torture, and ultimately, the murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. But the most shocking part of these tapes wasn't just the horrific acts Paul committed. It was Karla's role in them. What Karla had once dismissed as just a mistake was exposed in full, vivid clarity. She had played an active role, helping to drug the girls, assisting Paul in the execution of their every vile whim. Karla had not just been a passive participant in her mind. She had been a willing accomplice. She had done more than just stand by. She had been complicit in every action, every step of the way. And yet, even in the face of these tapes, Karla insisted she was just a victim, manipulated by Paul. She claimed she had been trapped in a controlling relationship, one where her choices were taken from her by force and coercion. But how much of this was the truth? How much was part of the carefully crafted story she had spun to protect herself? The key twist in this case came when Karla, facing mounting pressure and the weight of the evidence, struck a plea deal with the prosecution. In exchange for her testimony, she would receive a reduced sentence. This deal, one that would allow her to serve only 12 years in prison, would leave the public in a state of shock. Many felt that justice had been abandoned. After all, how could a woman who had participated in such atrocities, who had enabled and actively assisted in the abductions, walk free after just 12 years? The deal itself became a major point of contention. To the public, Karla had committed the same horrific acts as Paul, yet she had walked away with far fewer consequences. But behind the plea deal, there was still something more. The question of whether Karla Homolka had played a role far deeper than she had let on remained unanswered. Had she truly been a victim, or had she been every bit as evil as Paul himself? Years passed, and the shockwaves from the case still rippled through Canada, leaving a nation torn between outrage and disbelief. While Paul Bernardo remains behind bars, serving a life sentence without parole, Karla Homolka's fate was far more complicated. Her plea deal had left many asking questions, but in the end, she was released from prison in 2005, having served just 12 years for her involvement in the brutal murders. Her release sparked immediate public backlash. Karla's identity was hidden by authorities, in an effort to protect her from the public's wrath. But no amount of protection could shield her from the judgment and the stigma that followed her release. For years after her freedom, her whereabouts remained a closely guarded secret. Yet, despite this, the question remained unanswered. Had Karla Homolka truly been a victim of Paul, or was she a calculating, manipulative woman who had enabled his horrific acts? Some claim that Karla's role was minimized by the plea deal she struck with the prosecution. Some even argue that she had been the true mastermind behind the horrors, with Paul being merely a tool in her hands. And yet, there are others who continue to believe Karla was the victim of a powerful and manipulative man who controlled her every move. But does that excuse her involvement in the crimes? As time has passed, Karla's quiet life after prison has remained largely uneventful. She has changed her name, started a family, and kept a low profile, far away from the media's gaze. But her legacy, the brutal murders of two innocent girls, will forever be tied to her name, no matter how hard she tries to escape it. The debate continues. Was justice truly served? Was Karla's punishment enough? Or was it a betrayal of the victim's memories? As you reflect on this case, one question remains. Is it possible for someone like Karla Homolka to truly escape the consequences of their actions? Or will she always carry the weight of those terrible crimes, even if the world chooses to forget?